Hello everyone, and this is Chou from the Forerunner Christian Chess Club, and today we're going to have another lesson on the basics of chess. Today we're going to look at check and checkmate, what those mean, and how does it affect the game of chess. So, chess, or check, is when the king is under attack. The king is the most important piece in the game. So, when we have an enemy piece that is attacking the king, let's say this rook comes all the way here and checks and attacks the king. Now, if the king does nothing, the rook's next move can come all the way over here and capture the king. So, when the rook comes here and starts to threaten the king, this is called check. When there's a check, white, or the king and the side in check must defend against the check. And so, in this case, let's say the king runs away. Now he's no longer in check. The rook can come here again and attack the king. Again, the king is in check. The king must run away, or at least deal with it somehow, so he comes here and runs away. Finally, again, the rook comes here with check. Now, the king doesn't always have to run from check. Another very effective way is to block a check. So remember when we talked about how pawns at the very beginning can move 2 squares or 1 square if they wanted to. And so in this move, the pawn can go 1, 2 squares up and blocking the rook from attacking the king. And so there is no longer check. Now, again, legally, when the king's under attack, white has to deal with it. White can't just do something else, like put a knight here or put a pawn here. It's an illegal move. He has to deal with this. So if he does this, black will say, no, you have to go back because your king is under check. Now, oftentimes, check happens a lot. And usually when check happens, it's not very good. But it's not the end of the game because sometimes people do bad checks. But there is a good check, which is, let's say this rook comes over here too and check. Now, the king is in check, and there's nowhere to go. He can't go here because the rook will still take him. He can't go here, the rook will still take him. He can't go to these 3 squares because the rook will still take him. And, maybe he can go here, but wait, remember the pawns? The pawns all attack diagonally. So, if he goes here, then these 2 pawns might capture it. So, in this situation, because the king has nowhere to go, he cannot stop check. There's nothing that can block the rook. Therefore, the king will lose, and that's when they call it checkmate. When the king has no more hope, and the king will be captured. There are many checkmate examples. Oftentimes, what we see is, for instance, the fool's mate. So let's say, and this is a game of chess, and white first pushes his king pawn up 2. Then the black pushes this pawn up 1 square, and let's say, white moves this pawn up 2. Now, if the pawn moves up 2 squares here, this is a gigantic mistake because it opens up what I call the fool's diagonal. And so now the queen can go all the way. Remember, the queen can move diagonally and straight, right? The queen can move diagonally all the way to this place and use this diagonal to attack the king. Remember, we call this check, right? Because the king is under attack. But look, the king cannot run anywhere. The king can't go here, here, here. The king can't come here too because it's still check. So in this case, well, also, there's nothing that can block the queen. You cannot move a piece here. The knight moves in an L shape. Coming here doesn't help. Coming here doesn't help. The bishop diagonal coming here doesn't help. Nothing helps. So therefore, this is called checkmate, and white wins. And the goal of chess is to checkmate your opponent. Try to make the enemy king lose. Now, the situation will be different if this knight was here. If this knight was here, then the queen comes here with check. Of course, yes, the king still has nowhere to go, but now, as you can see, the knight will just capture the queen. Remember? 1, 2, 3. And once the queen is captured, there's no more check, and white can start to cry. The other example is, let's say the knight is here. If the knight is here, and the queen goes all the way here to check the king again, then the knight can actually move all the way from here to here, again, L shape, to block the queen. So now the queen cannot capture the king, and so check is stopped again. Again, there are many other ways to checkmate, and oftentimes it requires a double attack. So the most famous of these checkmates is called the scholar's mate, otherwise known as the four-move checkmate. So let's say, white moves these pieces out. The queen and the bishop now attacks this pawn with a double attack. The king is the only one defending the pawn. But let's say that black doesn't know that. Black decides to push his pawn forward over here for no reason because he remembered how to move his pawns. Now the queen can go all the way here, capture this pawn, and again, she attacks the king, so that's check, right? The king cannot take the queen because the bishop will be attacking the king, and that's illegal. The king can't run away. The king can't come over here because it's still check. So in this position, the king is checkmated. And that concludes our quick lesson about check and checkmate. Hope you guys learned a lot, and I look forward to playing you in a game of chess.